Whenever a company launches a new product, it puts a huge emphasis on how much better the performance is.
We've also improved the CPU and GPU significantly.
This strategy makes a lot of sense, of course. Who doesn't want their device to be more powerful than the previous model? However, why do we put so much emphasis on performance and performance alone? Does that increase in performance actually make that device better in day-to-day usage? I would argue no. I would argue instead that battery life is the true differentiator for tech these days. Okay, so I want to start off here by saying that I do care about performance. Just like you, I want my device to be fast and certainly better than the previous model. However, performance has reached a bit of a plateau over the past few years. Now, we're seeing performance gains that are so slight and so minimal that it doesn't really make much of a difference in your day-to-day usage. Meanwhile, battery life isn't really gaining that much at all. It's getting better here and there, but in some places it's actually getting worse. This leaves me questioning, why are we putting so much effort into making our phones and our other pieces of tech a little bit faster and not putting a lot more emphasis into making them more battery efficient? Personally, I would be totally fine with seeing a device that had the same exact amount of performance as the previous model. Or, in fact, I'd be fine with it decreasing a little bit, if that meant that we saw significant gains in battery life instead, because battery life is just more important to me in my day-to-day usage. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about, starting with smartphones. First, take a look at these charts comparing Galaxy S Ultra benchmarks over the past 3 years. We're seeing huge jumps in multi-core performance, which is great for those of you doing really heavy workloads. But in single core and gaming performance, we're seeing only slight jumps. Now, check out these charts for the past few Apple iPhone models. We see the same thing here. Big jumps in multi-core, nominal jumps in single core and gaming. In other words, devices are definitely getting more powerful. But the biggest gains are happening in things that you probably don't do on a day-to-day basis. For example, watching YouTube videos, checking your email, scrolling through Instagram. All these common things that we do day to day aren't going to be much faster than they were on previous models. If you're rendering out 4K video every day, then yeah, you're probably going to see some gains, but most people aren't doing that on a day-to-day basis on their smartphones. So why do we care about these minor performance gains? Okay, so now let's look at this chart showing the battery life stats for the latest pro level Pixels. You're eking out a few minutes more for Zoom calls and general camera usage, which is good, but for 4K recording, you see a huge dip. And in gaming, we're actually worse off for battery life than we were last year, which is just crazy to think about. Here's a similar chart for the latest Galaxy S Ultra models. If you're watching 4K videos, you're going to see better power efficiency than before, but using your camera is going to be worse and everything else is going to be pretty much the same. What I'm seeing here is that the smartphone industry could learn a lot from the laptop industry. Speaking of batteries, I want to quickly tell you about 2 CUKTECH power banks that are not only portable and convenient, but also on sale. The CUKTECH CP253L is a colorful 20,000 mAh power bank that is the perfect companion for your everyday carry devices. It is capable of pushing 45 watts of power, which is enough to charge your smartphone and even some laptops. It has a nifty built-in cable, so you don't need to carry one separately, and it has plenty of ports for charging multiple devices at once. Normally $29.99, this is on sale for just $18.90 for a limited time. We also have the CUKTECH 15SE, which is great for people who want their power banks to not only perform well, but look good doing it. This one delivers up to 85 watts of power output, which would allow you to charge your phone and most laptops at the same time. Its 20,000 mAh capacity makes it good enough for charging multiple devices, but also not so bulky that it weighs you down. It's airline safe, fire resistant, and most importantly, on sale right now for just $33.74, a deep discount from its usual price of $44.99. Both of these power banks are only on sale until December 2nd, so grab these deals while you can by heading to the link in the description. Thank you to CUKTECH for sponsoring this video. And now, back to laptops. The laptop industry changed dramatically in November 2020 when Apple launched its M series of chips. These chips enabled the newest MacBooks of the time to be very, very performant. In fact, they worked just as well unplugged as they did plugged in, which is something we didn't see very often. In addition, the battery efficiency went through the roof, allowing you to use your MacBook to do pretty much anything for multiple hours, getting you through your entire workday with ease. This makes a MacBook basically a no-compromise system. Well, no compromises if you don't think that macOS itself is a compromise like me, but that's a whole other discussion. Anyway, now we're starting to see the Windows laptop industry try and catch up. For example, we have the Snapdragon X Elite processor, which is very high in performance and also sips on battery life. We also have Intel's Lunar Lake, which also is very performant and sips on battery life. In fact, with either one of these chips in your laptop, you can probably get a full 8-hour workday out of it without having to plug in ever. In 2025, we expect this trend to continue. We expect to see more Windows laptops that are great at performance, but also really great at battery life. In fact, we might even eventually see a true MacBook killer, meaning a laptop that's powerful, battery efficient, and is just as powerful plugged in as it is unplugged. I, for one, can't wait for that day. And so what the smartphone industry needs to be doing is needs to be looking at what's going on in the laptop industry. Why is it that the laptop industry has caught on to the idea that battery life is what consumers really care about, whereas the smartphone industry is still stuck on performance, performance, performance? But what really has been exciting to see over the past year is what's going on in the smartwatch industry. This year, with the Google Pixel Watch 3, we saw incredible battery life gains. Granted, Google did release a larger version of the watch with a larger battery, so of course it's going to have better battery life. But even the smaller version of the watch with the same size battery as the Pixel Watch 2 still saw better battery life gains. This makes sense because that's what Google told us it was going to do. At Google I/O, it said with Wear OS 5, its main consideration was increasing overall battery life. Google also didn't upgrade the processor in the Pixel Watch 3. The same processor in the Pixel Watch 2 is in the Pixel Watch 3, which is fine. There was nothing wrong with the performance of the Pixel Watch 2, it's just that its battery life wasn't as good as it can be. And then with the Pixel Watch 3, the same processor, but with better battery life. I am totally fine with this. In fact, I wish the smartphone industry would adopt this strategy. There's no reason why I wouldn't buy a phone in 2024 that had a flagship chipset from 2023. The flagship chipset from 2023 is still going to be great. And if they can introduce software and maybe even hardware optimizations in the new phone that makes it so battery life is better than in the previous year, what would be wrong with that? Let me finish up here by saying that I am in no way trying to argue that performance shouldn't be advanced year over year. I definitely want better performing smartphones, smartwatches, and laptops. What I don't want is that performance to be at the expense of battery life. I think that they should be looking at performance and looking at battery life at either the same level or possibly even raising battery life a little bit up over performance. Thankfully, we are seeing this trend popping up here and there. Recently, Android Authority got a hold of some leaked documents from inside Google in which it openly discussed how bad battery life is for some of its smartphones. In fact, it even referred to its own battery life in these documents as poor. We're also seeing that the early results for the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite processor are looking really good for both performance and battery life. Of course, that chip is going to be very expensive and it's probably going to drive up the cost of those flagship smartphones that are coming to the United States soon with it inside, but at least we're getting more battery life, which is great. I want to close this out with a question for you. Can you imagine if you could go and buy any smartphone, smartwatch, or laptop and know that by default, it would get at least 2 days of battery life? This is not some far-fetched idea. We could have this right now. The problem is that companies think we don't want it. They think that we want performance. And so it's always trying to make its devices more performant. But battery life is really what I want. My phone and my laptop and my smartwatch, they're all plenty powerful. They're all doing everything I need them to do, and they're doing them very quickly. But what I don't have is battery life. I want my laptop, my smartwatch, and my smartphone to last all day into the next without having to charge, and I don't care if that means that I don't get any performance gains for the next few years. Please, take away the performance gains. I just don't want them. But I want to know what you think. Do you think that performance is more important than battery, or do you think that battery is more important than performance? Jump down in the comments and let me know. And in the meantime, I will see you in the next video.